game I've been playing this week is Horizon Chase Turbo, and it's not a game I'd actually heard of until last week in the podcast when I'm not sure if it was you or Darren had brought it up, because we were talking about Outrun and then somebody mentioned this here about how it looked and stuff. So I actually looked into it and I watched a couple of videos and thought it actually looks quite decent. So I reached out to the Horizon Chase Twitter people and they were really good. Like, they responded to my questions and stuff, and they were kind enough to send me a review code of it, although it was an Australian one, so I had to set up a wee Australian account on my Switch, which was actually really easy. Like, I resuscitated an old email address that I had and set up the Australian account, downloaded the game, no problems, working fine, and so far I have to say it's actually pretty good. The first thing that strikes you about it is just how colourful it is. I've sort of complained in the past about the amount of like 8-bit and 16-bit games that are being made like by indie developers and stuff, and you kind of get tired of it a bit, but this game's just really bright, colourful, clean, and it's just like, it's got this really nice style. It's a simple style, but it looks really good, and everything moves like as it should, like really fast and stuff. But basically it's not really like Outrun, which was maybe we're pulling the comparisons with last week. It's more like if you've ever played something like Top Gear on the Super Nintendo.
I haven't.
You're not against the clock like you would be in Outrun. You start at like in 20th place, and you have to basically make your way up to first place throughout however many laps there are on the course. And I used to love those sorts of games, like Top Gear Rally on the Nintendo 64 was great, or like Sega Rally 2 on the Dreamcast. And this is like really like a throwback to those like those sorts of games on like the Super Nintendo, because the way the course works is it's a wee bit jarring initially, because it almost feels like you're on rails kind of. Because if you remember those sorts of old racing games, like the way like the level sort of like builds in front of you, and then you'll go into a corner and it kind of feels like your car turns round the corner before you press anything, just by the way like the course builds. It does that in this here as well, sort of go around the corner without having pressed anything, but you do have to turn still to make it around the corner. You'll crash off the edge, and it's just got that classic sort of like Outrun style thing where like you'll crash off the edge and your car will like do some flips or whatever, and then you're back, you're going again. But like I said, you start off and you're racing against 20 people, and this is like, when it opens up, it's the World Tour mode it's called, and basically you've got this whole big world map, and there's like lots of different countries like dotted on it. You start off in this like first area, and everywhere else is locked by needing a certain amount of points from the races to unlock each new area. But anyway, you go into the first country, and it'll be divided up into like 3 different areas, and then you go into those areas and they themselves are split up into like 2 or 3 races. So there's a lot of content. I think there's over 100 tracks in it.
Impressive.
Yeah, and all the tracks are like different themes and stuff. Like you'll have like your typical like roads with like grassy hills and stuff, or you'll have like snow, rain, and it all looks like really colourful and vibrant, and it's just the sort of thing that really like grabs me. I actually posted a video on Twitter the other day of one of the snow levels where it's like driving along and then like the fog gradually sets in and then the snow gets heavier and heavier, and that kind of ties in a wee bit to our topic of the week.
Instant 10 out of 10, Greg.
There's so many, almost an overwhelming amount of things to do. But basically you start off in the World Tour mode and it's all split up. You just do one race, and then like you can repeat that race, or you can move on to the next one if you've got enough points or you placed high enough. Or there's also wee like upgrade races you unlock, where if you finish in like the top 3 or whatever, you get an upgrade for your car. Well, it's for all your cars, because there's a big selection of cars as well, and it just might improve your like speed or nitro or like your steering.
Does that improve it across the board then? Every car will improve in steering? Oh, that's good. That's
every single car, so you could just pick your favourite designed one really, and they all have their different...
Yeah, it's like a skin.
Yeah. So you start in that there, and like I said initially, it's a wee bit jarring with the corners and stuff, but the trickiest part of each race is probably the initial part, because you start and you've got this whole big pack of 20 cars, and you'll start and you're sort of behind them all, and you'll try and time it to get the best start you can. But if you've played any of those games in the past, you'll know that when you're driving along and you just clip the back of one of the cars, it kind of stops you dead. Well, not completely dead, but it really like damages your momentum. So when you're starting in the big pack of 20 and you're trying to weave through at the start, it's really easy to clip quite a few cars, and that can really hurt you towards the end of the course, because trying to catch first and second place on occasions can be tricky enough, and you need to sort of navigate the first section as best as you can before you're able to really like speed up and get into your flow. But I haven't said that, I haven't finished out of the top 3 in any of my races so far. I think it says I'm about 33% of the way through it so far, but it is really fun. So once you play the World Tour for a wee bit, you'll unlock like a tournament, which is slightly more like maybe a traditional sort of racing game setup, where you've got like 4 tracks in a row, and you have to like place high enough to get like points to obviously win at the end of the 4 tracks. Like, I prefer that sort of setup rather than just like a one-off race, because I like that sort of like the fear of just making a mistake in in one wee race where it like completely throws you off. But you'll unlock that, and there's other game modes as well which I haven't even got to. There's like I think it's Playground it's called, where they're like one-off races.
I've heard that there's a lot of online content with the Playgrounds, but has the game released yet?
Yes, I think so.
So that should be up and running, basically.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I haven't really had a chance to look into that properly yet. I will do, obviously, before I do my review for it. But there's that, and then there's like an endurance mode as well, which is all locked away until you complete certain conditions in the game.
Oh, that sounds like the time trials, you know, and counting down clock or something.
I'm assuming it's going through like every single track or something, so that could be a long one.
Mass endurance.
Yeah, the tracks themselves are usually done within like 2 or 3 minutes at most. It does feel really snappy and stuff, but other than you're like racing and trying to like dodge the other cars, there's tokens on the track that you collect as well, and if you collect them all, you'll get like a super trophy. Then you have to collect them all and finish first, so there's reasons to go back into the races that you've already beat. But also on the track, you'll notice when you're playing, there's a wee fuel gauge in the corner, and your fuel drops as you race around, and there's wee fuel tanks that you can pick up as well to sort of refill. Occasionally they're quite easy to miss. So there's been times where I've run out of fuel and just sort of like slowing down and down and down, just hoping that I make it to the next fuel tank.
Amazing.
Yep. So there's all these different wee elements to the courses, and it definitely adds to the replay value. And like I said, there's already loads of content in there already. I think Darren actually tweeted them last week and maybe even mentioned it on the podcast last week about the price difference, because he says he's already got the iPad version, which costs him $2.99, and the Switch version's coming out at $17.99, and he was wondering, well, what are the differences? Well, in this one here, I haven't got to try it. There's a like 4-player split screen multiplayer in it, which I'm sure is going to be great fun. We don't get enough of those sorts of experiences anymore. But there's all this other content. There's like exclusive car skins and like all these like playground modes and stuff. I don't think any of that's in the iPad version, and it's the sort of thing, like, there is so much content here. If this came out like 20 years ago and we were looking at everything that it has, $17.99, we'd be going, that's an absolute bargain. But we live in this sort of world where it's like, well, this is $2.99 on the iPad. But it's like, I've been having such a decent time with it that I almost felt like, because I have like the Australian code, I almost want to buy the game on my like UK account just to like show a bit of support. And then that sort of $17.99 price kind of makes me not want to, which is, I feel bad about, because like the guys are so nice providing the code and stuff. So I actually went on to like the Google Play Store on my phone and saw, it's like Horizon Chase is on there as well, $2.79. Bought it. And you know what?
Well done.
Haven't played it. It actually is like really similar to the Switch version. Like, and it seems to be quite a lot of content on the phone version as well. I know there's all this extra stuff on the Switch game, but having played the cheaper version, it becomes a more difficult sell again on the Switch, because it does run.
Because that version
it
holds up really well.
It does run really well, and like, I don't play that many mobile games or anything, but it's a really good mobile game. And this is a really good. It's a good Switch game as well. Like I say, I'm reviewing it for the site, and I haven't quite settled on my score yet, because I keep wavering between things, because like, even though there's lots of courses and content and stuff, it does almost feel a wee bit repetitive sometimes.
The one thing I take away from looking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I take away from looking at videos and all that, is it difficult to memorize courses? Because just like in Outrun, you kind of it tells you whether you're going left or right when you're on top of a corner. You know, you got to you're kind of doing everything reactively, not by memory. You know, if you're in a Mario Kart race, you are memorizing that track inside out.
To be honest, so far it has been like, I think there's maybe only been about one occasion where a corner has came on top of me before I'm ready to right. Like, you're going around the left corner and then straight into a right corner. The first lap it gets you. Once you come around to the second lap, you know what's coming. You're ready for it.
Okay.
But I like the coins are kind of set up in that sort of way too. Like, the wee tokens that you have to collect. Like, you'll maybe drive through and there maybe like different rows of them. You'll pass them on the first time around the lap, or the first lap. You'll try and put it in your memory, right, they're in that position when I get round to it again. So I haven't really had any problems like that there.
That's good to hear.
One slight issue I've had is, and it's not been that big a deal, but occasionally you'll be driving along and then all of a sudden there'll just be like, the game will just like pause just for like a fraction of a second. It's only happened like once every like few races. It's not like happening constantly, because most of the time it's really fast and fluid, but it will just occasionally it's just this wee stop that kind of just throws you off a wee bit.
Couple of missed frames kind of thing.
Yeah, kinda. And there's been one occasion where after a race just stopped, and I had to go back to the home menu and close the game and go back into it. Apart from that, everything's been really good, and if you're interested in it, it wouldn't be the worst thing to try it on your phone first, and then maybe if you like it, get the Switch version, because like obviously you're getting that 4-player split screen, you can play with your son and stuff, really good fun, plus you're getting the benefit of like actual control stick and buttons.
How do they deal with it on the phone? Is it tilt as well, or is it just...
This actually surprised me, because when I was talking to Darren about it, whenever I first loaded it up, you can like assign the controls to different buttons and stuff, like zero and boost and whatever to different buttons. So I sort of like thought, I had a race normal with the buttons and stuff, and then I thought, you know what, I'll just slip a wee Joy-Con off here and I'll just try some tilt controls. And to my surprise, there wasn't any. Either that or I'm being a complete donut and just not seeing it. But I don't see any tilt controls in the phone version either. And by the way, Darren was talking there was tilt controls in the iPad version. I don't know if he's making a mistake there or not, but yeah,
we'll quiz him about it.
I would love them to patch in some some tilt controls, because I kind of like, I had Super Hang-On, I think it was the arcade version of Super Hang-On, downloaded on the Wii, and you could play with different control options, and I loved using just like tilting the Wii remote to steer in that one there, and I would love to do the same in this here. Apart from those wee slight niggles here and there, you're getting a lot of stuff for your money here. It is a really good game, and we have been starved at decent racing titles on the Switch, so you could do an awful lot worse than to give Horizon Chase Turbo a go.
This is on my radar, that's for sure.